How the Constitution came to life. Welcome to Making of a Nation American History in VOA Special English. The United States became a nation in 1776, less than a century later in the 1860s. It was nearly torn apart. A civil war took place, the only one in the nation's history. States from the North and the South fought against each other. The conflict involved the right of the South to leave the Union and deal with issues, especially the issue of slavery, its own way. This week in our series, Fran and Tony describe how the Constitution survived this very troubled time in American history. American Civil War lasted 4 years. 600,000 men were killed or wounded. In the end, the slaves were freed and the Union was saved. Abraham Lincoln was president during the Civil War. He said the Southern states did not have the right to leave the Union. Lincoln firmly believed that the Union of States was permanent under the Constitution. In fact, he noted, one of the reasons for establishing the Constitution was to form a more perfect union. His main goal was to save what the Constitution had created. One cannot truly understand the United States without understanding its Constitution. That political document describes American system of government and guarantees the right of all citizens. Its power is greater than any president, court, or legislature. In the coming weeks, we will tell the story of the United States Constitution. We will describe the drama of its birth in the Philadelphia in 1787, and we will describe the nation debate over its approval. Before we do, however, we want to tell how the document provides for change without changing the basic system of government. If you ask Americans about their constitution, they probably will talk about the Bill of Rights. These are the first 10 changes or amendments to the Constitution. They contain the right of all people in the United States. They have the most direct effect on people's lives. Among other things, the Bill of Rights guarantee freedom of speech, religion, and the press. It also establishes rules to guarantee that a person suspected of a crime is treated fairly. The Bill of Rights was not part of the document signed at the convention in the Philadelphia in 1787. The delegate believed that political freedom were basic human rights, so some said it was not necessary to express such right in a constitution. Most Americans, however, wanted their right guaranteed in writings. This is why most states approved the new constitution only on condition that a Bill of Rights would be added. This was done, and the amendment became law in 1791. One early amendment involved in the method of choosing a president and vice president. The American first presidential election, the man who received the most votes became president. The man who received the second highest number of votes became vice president. It became necessary to change the constitution, however, after separate political party developed. Then ballots have to show the name of each candidate for president and vice president. There were no other amendments for 60 years. The next one was born in the blood of Civil War. During the war, President Abraham Lincoln announced the Emancipation proclamation. That document freed the slaves in that state that were rebelling against the Union. It was not until after Lincoln was murdered, however, that the state approved the 13th Amendment to ban slavery everywhere in the country. The 14th Amendment approved in 1868 said no state could limit the right of any citizen, and the 15th approved 2 years later, said a person's right to vote could not be denied because of his race, color, or former condition of slavery. By the 1890s, the federal government needed more money than it was receiving from tax on imports. It wanted to establish a tax on earnings. It took 20 years to win approval for the 60th Amendment. The amendment permit the government to collect income tax. Another amendment proposed in the early 1900s was designed to change the method of electing United States senator. For more than 100 years, senators were elected by the legislature of their state. The 17th Amendment, approved in 1913, gave the people the right to elect senators directly. In 1919, the states approved an amendment to ban the production, transportation, and sale of alcohol. Alcohol was prohibited. It could not be produced or sold legally anywhere in the United States. The amendment, however, did not stop the flow of alcohol. Criminal organizations found many ways to produce and sell it illegally. Finally, after 13 years, Americans decided the prohibition has failed. It has caused more problems than it has solved. So in 1933, the state approved another constitutional amendment to end the ban on alcohol. Another amendment in the 20th century included one that gave women the right to vote. It became part of the Constitution in 1920. Another amendment limits the president to 4 years term in office, and the 26th Amendment gave the right to vote to all persons who are at least 18 years old. The 2070 Amendment has one of the strongest stories of any amendment to the United States Constitution. This amendment established a rule for increasing the pay of senators and representatives. It said there must be an election between the time Congress votes to increase its pay and the time the pay rise goes into effect. The amendment was first proposed in 1789. Like all amendments, it needed to be approved by 3/4 of the states. This did not happen until 1992, so one of the first amendments to be proposed was the last amendment to become law. The 27th Amendment added to the Constitution have not change the basic system of government in the United States. The government state has 3 separate and equal parts: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The 3 parts balance each other. No part is greater than another. The first American state had no strong central government when they fought their war of independence from Britain in 1776. They cooperate under an agreement called the Articles of Confederation. The agreement provided for a Congress, but the Congress had few power. Each state governed itself. When the war ended, the state owed millions of dollars to their soldiers. They also owed money to European nations that had supported the American against Britain. The new United States have no nation money to pay the debts. There was an American dollar, but no, not everyone used it, and it did not have the same value everywhere. The situation led to economic urine in many peoples. They could not pay the money they owed. They lost their property. They were put in prison. Militant groups took action to help them. They interfered with tax collectors. They terrorized judges and banned court bailing. The situation was especially bad in the northeast parts of the country. In Massachusetts, a group led by a former soldier tried to seize guns and ammunition from the state military force. Share rebellion as it was called, was stopped. But from the north to the south, Americans were increasingly worried and frightened. Would the violence continue? Would the situation get worse? Many Americans distrust the idea of a strong central government. After all, they have just fought a war to end British rule. Yet Americans of different ages, education, and social growth felt that something had to be done. If not, the new nation would fail before it had a chance to succeed. There was the opinion and feeling that led in time to the writing of United States Constitution. That will be our story in the coming weeks of making of a nation.